Yo, over here, let me get your attention. Need your help. I need your help to hit that subscribe button. I need your help sharing the show. Much love and respect. This is the Outlaw Apostle Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Neff. I'm the fucking guy. This doesn't end well unless it ends. Can't just report the fucking obvious.
With the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces. That me, you really playing with your life. I'm about to
Just
come
a
and run it all
motherfucking
back.
jump.
I'm the new
Just go. Let's fucking go. This is the Outlaw Apostle Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Neff. I'm the fucking guy. And today, I've been looking forward to this all week. I was super pleased when I got a response, but Ron Harris is with us, and he's a seasoned bodybuilder. That's what we're going to call us. Being older, we're seasoned. And he's also been a very prolific writer. And this opportunity is huge because we get to get his extensive experience in the bodybuilding industry and with his career and his valuable insights into both bodybuilding from an athlete's perspective and a writer's perspective as well. Ron, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great, Troy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're super excited about this. Let's just start where you always start, I guess, the beginning. What inspired you to start bodybuilding back in the late 80s?
Yeah, I was Troy. I was a small kid, skinny, short. I was always one of the shorter kids in my class in school. Wasn't very good at sports at all. A little runt, and I just wanted to get bigger. I remember seeing, it wasn't bodybuilders who inspired me at first. It was pro wrestlers on TV, and this would have been early 80s, so wrestling wasn't what it is now. But I remember seeing guys like Ivan Putski, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Kerry Von Erich, superstar Billy Graham, guys like that, Hulk Hogan, who was a bad guy back then. And I thought it would be great if I could get bigger and stronger. And I knew I had this weird, a very vague notion that weights were how you did that. We had a couple weights around the house, but when I was 12 turning 13, I got my first weight set at home and I started training at home. I didn't find out about bodybuilding until I was, about 18 really. I got my first copy of Flex magazine. And from that minute on, I was hooked. I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to look like. I don't care how long it takes, how much effort. I'm going to look like these guys if it kills me.
That was your home weights? Were they the ones that had sand in it from Sear?
100%. In fact, I remember those are for my brother. My dad, I say he lifted weights, but he had one dumbbell that was sort of rusted and fused together. I think I weighed it later on. It was like 52 pounds. And he would sit on this old, disgusting chair in the basement that was, moldy and everything, the stuffing coming out of it. And he did like cheat concentration curls. That's the only exercise he knew about. But I would hear that clink, clink, clink down the basement. And like, my dad's lifting weights. I'm going to lift weights someday too. But yeah, we had all the, the collars that you needed a wrench to take them on and off, and sand filled, and good old days, man.
Crappy pulleys, the plastic, they were,
I was a long way from pulleys. That would come many years later.
In school back then, it wasn't like schools today that have these giant weight rooms for the athletes and stuff. Now, imagine what we could have done. We had one Nautilus machine that had like 4 steps on it, I think, that the whole team used. And we just each went around and did one set, and that was our training.
Yeah, it sounds to me more like that universal multi-station.
Probably.
You could do, there was a bench press, there was a military press, there was a leg press. I don't think there was anything for back. But yeah, those were very popular in weight rooms around schools all around the country in the 60s, 70s, 80s.
And they put them in a closet.
Yeah, they weren't that bad.
So what was your transition then from home to a gym? How did that?
Well, I mean, so all I had at home was a bench. And eventually I was like, there's got to be more than this. I still had no idea what I was doing. I didn't train legs until I was 18. I thought it was stupid to train legs. I go, why would I want my legs big? Then my upper body's going to look small. It just didn't make sense to me. So I went to the boys club downtown in the city. I'm from Waltham, Massachusetts. They had a little more variety of weights. They had dumbbells and they had one of those universal multi-stations and cables and stuff like that. I didn't join a real gym until, I'll tell you, I started off with, you mentioned Nautilus. I started off, the very first gym I ever joined was my first semester of college, University of California, Santa Barbara. I had picked up in the bookstore, the campus bookstore, 2 books, the Nautilus bodybuilding book and the Nautilus Advanced Bodybuilding book, because I was just hungry for information. And when I read those, Arthur Jones, who was the guy who invented, he was such a convincing writer with such authority. He honestly made me believe for about 2 years that free weights were these obsolete caveman tools. They were worthless, and Nautilus machines were light years ahead of them, so much more effective. So that's when I first started training the whole body. I was only using Nautilus machines. But I still made, you always make those newbie gains.
Always. They're always there. But so you went to school out there, you're starting your training. It's so huge today, I think. And you've been a big part of that for all of us, for people like me, because we didn't have the internet and videos and people to show us. My dad had Arnold's book that had all the exercises of Arnold in it. Like
Arnold's Encyclopedia.
That. And that's what I used. But besides that, it was Flex Magazine. It was muscular development. We looked at, this is what it said pros do, and this is what you must do.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to always sound like, and I'm sure you're in the same boat, be that grouchy old man who goes, you kids don't know how easy you have it, because literally on their phone, they could, in 2 seconds, they have access to anything they want, any information, training videos, nutrition information. It's all right there on their fingertips. We had to I remember going to libraries and card catalogs and trying to find out weight training, nutrition, stuff like that, because I had no idea. And even the magazines back then, they weren't that comprehensive. There wasn't much about, like contest prep, things like that, when I did my first show in spring of 1989, entirely clueless, had no idea what the hell I was doing. Whereas today, kids, there's templates out there. They can easily say, oh, okay, you do cardio, this is what you should eat on contest prep. If you're on gear, this is the gear you use. We didn't have that. We had very little information, but I don't feel like I was cheated. I feel lucky that we had to fight and scrape for that information, because A, it built character, and B, because we had to do things through trial and error, we never sort of took anyone's word for it. We had to try things out and see if they worked. Whereas now, somebody might follow somebody's program, nutrition or training program, for a year. It's not working for them until they figure out it's not working.
Yeah. I find, at least for myself, is you said the same thing, is it's a journey, and we've enjoyed the journey, and it's an experimental journey. And what I see is a lot of new people today, they get caught up in minutia. They get caught up in these little things when you got to see what works for you. And that includes diet, that includes the training. There's just not one right way. And there are these little tribes all over that promote their one right way. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is, they have information paralysis, analysis paralysis. There's so much information. They don't know they're always looking for the next big thing. The grass is always greener. Whatever program they're on now, they're always worried that there might be something else that they're not trying that's better. I'm sure you're similar. We were kind of ignorant. We just know you did these basic exercises: squat, deadlift, bench press, military press, chin up, dips. You did these basic movements. You got stronger on them. You ate a lot of food. You slept and you grew. And we didn't overcomplicate, because we didn't know much, and it worked. And now I look at these kids now who have access to all the information possible, and I see so many of them that barely look like they lift weights, because they're doing. I complained about this on Instagram the other day. They'll be showing you, they'll say, don't do barbell rows. Those aren't good. Here's this little cable thing where you're on a bench and you're really squeezing the lat. And the guy demonstrating, it's like 120 pounds. I'm like, dude, you need to get over to a bar and do some barbell rows, and then you'd actually have some muscle on you.
I don't know if you've probably seen this too. what's the purpose of laying on the floor, the dirty gym floor, to lay down and do curls laying on the floor when it isn't the same?
With
And
the cable?
yeah,
Oh, I was gonna say, because if you did it with a bar would just fall on you.
they do the cable.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, it's an interesting variation on a cable curl. Yeah.
what they saw on Instagram.
I remember seeing Marcus Rule probably 20 years ago doing something similar to that, lying back on like a seated cable row, but he was doing curls on it. So maybe he's the one that got that going many years ago.
So tell me, wrestlers were your first big thing. Who was your first influence then from the bodybuilders that really had an impact? And you'd say, even today, you're glad that was the one you followed.
Oh, easy. Yeah, Rich Gaspari, the Dragon Slayer. Like I said, I got my first. I went to California. I'm from Boston. My mother was forwarding all my mail to me, and I had bought some Weider weight gain shake, dynamic muscle builder or something that summer. And then I went off to California, and on the side there was a little thing you could tear off and send in the mail, and they were going to send you a free issue of Flex magazine. So when I got to California, the first week I was there at school, that came in the mail, and I opened it up, and it was the guys of this was fall of '87. So you had like Lee Haney, Gary Stridham, Rich Gaspari, Mike Christian, Lee Labrada. That was the group of bodybuilders, Barry DeMay. And for some reason, Gaspari was the one who I was really drawn to because he was 5'8". He was from the East Coast. I read a little bit about him. They said, well, he didn't have the greatest genetics. And looking back now, his genetics were still pretty damn great. But here he was challenging Lee Haney, who was, 5'11", super wide, genetic freak. I like the idea that, okay, because I knew I didn't have these awesome genetics, but I thought maybe I could look like that. If I saw that Richie was he was known for being such an intense trainer in the Tom Platz style, Mike Mentzer style, just very, very hard trainer. And that resonated with me, that blue collar East Coast work ethic. So he's the guy I would put, and of course the veins, when you're a young kid, I'm 17, 18 years old, seeing all those veins riddled around, that just freaked me out. I said, I want to look like that guy, the Dragon Slayer.
Yeah.
And
that's cool.
Years later, I ended up working for Rich for over 10 years, helping him out with the supplement company, doing some writing for him and stuff.
Yeah, that's also, and that was going to be my next question was, you really got involved in the writing pretty early too.
Yeah, so
wasn't long after.
Well, some people know and some people don't, but I got into this industry through a company called American Sports Network. So the last semester, I transferred to Emerson College in Boston. That's where I did my last 3 years of school, mass communications film major. And the last semester, they offered something called the LA program, where you would go out to Los Angeles because they had a ton of alumni out there working in the entertainment industry, and you would intern somewhere related to your chosen field. And I had been watching this show on ESPN. People don't know this. Young people don't. There was a show every month called American Muscle Magazine. It was a 1-hour show. It was on ESPN for about 12 years. It had contest coverage, workouts, gossip, fashion, cooking. It really was like it was a magazine format TV show. I started working there in January 91 as an intern, but he quickly hired me right away. I became the associate producer, and I was there for 7.5 years. That's how I really got into the industry. That's how I met all the contest promoters, the magazine owners, the photographers, supplement company owners, and we would feature people on the show like as they were coming up. I mean, a young Kevin Levroni, Dorian Yates, Ronnie Coleman. I could go on and on and on. Everybody was on that show.
Yeah.
At that time. And in my second year there, we went down to Iron Man magazine headquarters to shoot. Lonnie Teeper, who was a great writer, did their gossip column, News and Views, and did a lot of their features. We were going to have him do the preview for the 1991 Pro Ironman show because they promoted a contest called Pro Ironman. And while we were there, we took the cameras and I went in there. I was directing segments, went around and shot a bunch of the memorabilia. And I talked to Steve Holman, who was the editor at the time. I said, Steve, I love your magazine. How does one go about writing for Iron Man? I'm just, what do I do? He said, well, submit something to us. We'll see if we like it. Like, okay. And, this is when we had fax machines. So I typed something up on a word processor, faxed it to him. He said, "Yeah, we like it. We're going to pay you a couple $100." And I think I was in Iron Man every month from then for the next almost 20 years. I had either a column or an article, a feature article in there for about 20 years straight. So that's Iron Man magazine. I have to give them a lot of credit. Owner John Balick, co-owner Mike Nevue, the photographer, and Steve Holman. They're the ones who really gave me my start as a writer. And then things took off after that. I started writing for Muscle Mag and Muscle Media 2000 and Planet Muscle. I didn't start with MD until fall of 2001, as a ghostwriter for another writer who didn't want to do his work anymore. So I was like subcontracting for him. But then by the next year, I was starting to get my own work with them. And I didn't become full-time MD. I was still writing for tons of other people, which I loved because I had so much freedom. But I became full-time with MD in January of 2017 when I took on the dual titles of senior writer and online editor, which it was a lot of work. But looking back, now that MD's gone, geez, I really missed it. It was a hell of a ride.
Yeah, that's impressive. So in school, did you have a knack or an interest in writing?
I did some creative writing. So I was a film major. That's what I was thinking I was going to do, was end up working in motion picture industry. And the closest I ever came was working as a production assistant on a few commercials for a soft drink that Mick G, who directed Charlie's Angels. So I did that, and I didn't like it, honestly. Movie work it's like 18 hours a day. They barely sleep. They barely eat. It's a lot of work. But yeah, so TV was, even me taking that internship was kind of a stretch because like I wasn't a television major. I was a communications major, which is a very broad subject. But yeah, I never saw myself getting into that. But the writing, the very first thing they had me do as an intern, which was crazy to me, they were putting together their footage or their special for the 1990 Ms. Olympia that had happened a couple months before. Because this is back, we didn't have instant streams and pay-per-views back then. You had to wait a month or two to see these things on TV. But they were on TV. Yes, they were on ESPN. So I was writing the script for the voiceover, with the voiceover, not actor, the voiceover guy would read on that. And then I started doing the scripts for the show. And eventually, a couple of the guys I was only 21 years old. I had just turned 21. A couple of the other producers, they were always fighting with the executive producer, the guy who owned the company, Lou. And they quit. They ended up coming back eventually. But while they were gone, I just sort of got thrust into that role. I said, you got to go out and you're going out to Gold's Venice this weekend, or World Venice, and we need you shoot workouts with this guy and interviews with this guy. I'm like, okay, I guess so. And yeah, man, it was trial by fire. But that show, I missed that because it was, we're never going to see bodybuilding on television again like that, ever.
Now that's exciting time too. And I don't know if everybody has a different idea maybe of what the golden age is, but that was what people still talk about today. As great as some of these guys are today, they're always being compared to those guys of that time.
Yeah, and it was cool because I was in Los Angeles from early '91 until late 2000. So I caught the end of what I consider that the golden age to me was probably pumping iron era until the end of the 90s. It was a long stretch, but so I lived in Los Angeles. Every weekend I'd be out in Venice on the boardwalk. I'd go work out at Gold's. I belonged to Gold's Venice for over a year, even though it was quite a commute for me. But you had the Firehouse Restaurant, you had Gold's Venice, you had the Marina Pacific Hotel. People from all around the world, all the bodybuilders of the world, they called it the Mecca for a reason. They would converge on that place. They would either move out there or they would all spend a week or a month out of the year training out in Venice Beach. And you'd walk into Gold's Gym Venice back in those days. It was like a magazine. You'd see 10, 20 pros all over the place. Top Olympians training, in the little tank tops and little shorts that we had back then. Man, it was a very special time. We're never going to see that again because now bodybuilding, the world in general, because of the internet, you don't need to be there. Back then, all the photographers were based in LA, the magazines. So if people wanted publicity and to be discovered, they all went out to Venice. Now you make your own publicity on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok or whatever. But back then, LA bodybuilding scene was magical. So I actually feel sorry for this generation that they're never going to experience anything like that physically. It's digital now. So their community is online and it's on, they're chatting with each other on their phones and computers, but it's not the same. We actually had we had something special back then.
We did. What was your first, or what was your most memorable experience from the first Olympia that you covered?
Oh man. I'm gonna run through a couple real quick. Backstage, this was Dorian Yates' first Olympia. I had seen pictures of him from coverage of the Night of Champions earlier in the season where he had won that. I thought he's pretty good, but people are talking about him like he's going to beat Lee Haney. I'm thinking, I'm a Lee Haney fan. I'm thinking, this guy Dorian Yates, Lee's going to make him look like a baby. And backstage, it was only more reinforced. He had this blue and white tracksuit that he wore that it didn't do him any favors. It actually made him look smaller. He called it the TARDIS. It was a reference to Doctor Who, because it was like that telephone booth where you go inside, then it's the whole universe is in there. Anyway, so I'm like really thinking this guy is nothing special. But then I get out there and they walk out for judging. And as soon as I saw him walk out there, everybody's jaw dropped. I was like, oh, I guess I was wrong. The other thing from that Olympia that will always stand out to me was in the lobby outside. It was in a big ballroom at the Orlando Disney World Dolphin Hotel that year. One of the guys working IFBB security just had I think it was a black or a purple polo, giant black dude with these huge arms. And it just said like IFBB security. I'm like, dude, you should be on that stage. What's your name? It said Ronnie Coleman. I said, oh, you're going to be up there one day, dude. Trust me, you are freaking awesome. And he had just won, or I think he hadn't won it yet. I think he was like a few weeks away from the World Amateurs in Poland where he got his pro card that year. But, you could see people were following him around, and he's just like a security guy. But he had that aura about him where, he had like 22-inch, I don't know what his arms were. They were freaking huge, put it that way. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, that's great. That is just awesome stuff. And I'm going to take a little bit of a quick right turn here. What people don't know about you, maybe, is, and in the writing realm too, is you're interested in horror.
I was interested in horror long before I knew anything about weights or muscles. I was watching horror movies when I was 4 years old, staying up late, watching those black and white Wolfman, Dracula, Frankenstein, Creature from the Black Lagoon, all the old Universal movies. Creature double feature every Saturday on Channel 56 in Waltham. I think I read my first Stephen King book when I was 8 years old. I've read everything he's ever done. So yeah, I've been writing horror fiction the whole time I've been doing bodybuilding, nowhere near as prolific, unfortunately, as I have been with the bodybuilding articles, because the motivation for the bodybuilding articles was they were paying me. So I was getting paid to write those. But yeah, I have 2 collections of short stories. If people go to my Instagram, Ron Harris Muscle, I have links. It's all digital. It's like $1.99 they're good stories, man. I'm not ashamed. I'm not too proud to say, or maybe I'm being overly proud, but I'm not a bad horror writer. I'm a pretty decent horror writer because I have a pretty sick and twisted imagination. In fact, I can't show all the tattoos because I got this long thing, but
there
that's
you
Reagan
go.
from The Exorcist right there. I got one from Evil Dead. I got demons. I got all kinds of crazy shit. But yeah, horror. Yeah. To this day, people watch. They ask me if I watch this or that podcast. I try to catch some of the bodybuilding podcasts, but dude, with all these streaming services you have now, Netflix, Hulu, Paramount, Max, I probably watch, 20 to 30 horror movies a month to this day.
Wow.
I love horror. Love it.
So cool. Yeah, I didn't know about that part, and checking things out for the interview and stuff, and was like, well, I got to ask him about it.
I don't know about you, but Halloween is my favorite holiday by far. Dressing up in costumes. I have crap on my Facebook page of me. I've gone all out a few times, but from the time I was a little kid, I loved Halloween. I loved the haunted attractions. When I lived in California, I went out to Knott's Scary Farm, where they turned Knott's Berry Farm into this massive haunted house with all these mazes and monsters walking around and stuff, and Universal Horror Nights. I love that stuff. Love it.
That's cool stuff. So we'll get back to the bodybuilding. Looking at how it has evolved, because you've been there the whole time, really, with the rise of these digital platforms, what are we losing and what are we gaining?
Well, when we talk about things that we're losing, it's only to people like us who are probably feeling that way, because the people who are the young kids, they have nothing to compare it to. So
with the
I'd say bodybuilding was more of a
with the
like a special little elite club, a secret club back when we were young. You know, it was on TV and stuff. Don't get me wrong. It's not like it was a complete cult sport in obscurity, but you know, now anybody with a phone can go to any YouTube channel or any media outlet. There's Instagram. There's thousands of Instagram pages that cover the sport and feature the athletes. All the athletes have their own pages, all the way from beginners to Olympians. It's certainly the new era has opened up the market, I should say. It's exposed it to millions and millions of people who never otherwise would have had any knowledge or anything to do with bodybuilding. And all these divisions too. We came up, there was men's and women's bodybuilding. That was it. There was no fitness, bikini, figure, wellness. I could go on. There's 12 divisions now. They just added a 12th division. So it was smaller back then in a way, and it was more special to me. But yet again, if you never came up in that area, if you never experienced that, then you won't miss it. We miss it because we were there and we were part of it. Yeah. And, we were just talking before we started recording about your first gym. We remember those little hardcore dungeon type gyms. I think every city had a couple of those back in the, if you want to go to 70s, 80s, and 90s. And now, good luck finding any of those.
Yeah, it was a great gym. It's called Ameriplex. And occasionally we would get a pro once or twice a year that would roll through, or somebody would come in and it would be a big deal. But when they painted it, we got pissed. It's like, what do you paint it? Like we wore work boots. Like we were talking before we started recording, the crazy pants.
It's more mainstream down now. It's definitely more watered down. The word hardcore has been thrown around so much it almost lost its meaning. But bodybuilding was more hardcore back then. And, people think now hardcore means taking a bunch of tren or something. No, it had nothing to do with the drugs. It was a mindset of just going in there and going after those weights every day. And we were trying to get stronger. We were doing I was doing plenty of ego lifting. I look back and I'm reminded every waking minute about all the ego lifting I did with my shoulders and my knees and all this stuff. But God, we had so much fun with it back then. It was just, we were young too. I think we look back through the eyes of nostalgia. I think if you ask any bodybuilder what was the best era of bodybuilding, I bet most of them would just sort of refer to when they were in their teens and 20s, whenever that happened to be. Because think back, to you, isn't that like the best era of bodybuilding is when you were in your teens and 20s?
Yeah, it was my 20s. Yeah, that was the big. I don't even really count what I did when I was in my teens as lifting, because I made an attempt with very little equipment. I don't know if I got a little bit of help. My arms were strong for wrestling, and I was a pretty good wrestler. But other than that, it did spark an interest, though, obviously, then that carried on. I knew I needed to do something. Now, thoughts on, because we got into the new media, Chris Bumstead, I guess he's retiring. I'm a little sad to see that, because I'd love to see that when he competed in the Prague Pro, and that look is the look that's my favorite look, of all of them. I totally respect the monsters of the sport and what they do to get there. But what attracts me the most is a look like T-Bums, and even to step on stage with that against that, to compare that, because we've gotten a little bit away. But now with him, and then now I think you've talked about this last weekend, Sam Sulik made his first appearance, and my hat's off to that kid, because I look at it and think he had a lot to lose and very little to gain, and he took the risk, and it's going to pay off huge.
Not only that, I said in one of my videos on my channel, I give him a lot of credit because he could have worked with any coach, and probably for free. I'm almost sure. Hani Rambod, Chris Aceto, Boss of Outlaw, any of these top coaches would have been very happy to take on. He's got millions and millions of followers. Yeah. Why wouldn't they want to align themselves and say, I prepped Sam for his first show. Look how great he looked. He could have done that, no problem. But he went the hard route. He did it all on his own. It's not easy. I never had a coach, and I made a lot of stupid mistakes with, no internet or anything, but it's not easy. And we saw that he didn't look his best he could have. And I say that because he flattened out a lot at the end. I was checking his updates, and even a few days out, he's shooting posing videos out at the Dragon's Lair in Las Vegas. He lost a lot of his fullness and pop to his muscles. Sam, I could see he flattened out a lot toward the very end. At the very end, because he had to make weight. He started his prep at 270 pounds. He had to weigh in at 217 or lower. He weighed in at 216. I strongly suspect, and I mean, he might have confirmed this on a video or not, he probably employed diuretics to get down to that weight at the last minute. That's most people who have to make a weight. That's what they do. They use a diuretic and drop a bunch of water. So we didn't see the best possible version of Sam Sulek, but even saying that, he looked really, really good for a first show. And like you said, he had very little to gain. A lot of people, when you're that successful like this kid is, I call him a kid, he's 23, you have a lot of people really hoping and praying you'll fail and just waiting to point at you and say, ha ha, you suck. I knew you were going to suck. But he didn't suck. He was pretty damn good. Whether he's going to turn pro at the Arnold Classic next week, that remains to be seen. That's going to be a much, much higher level of competition than what he was facing at the regional show out there in Las Vegas. But I give the kid a lot of credit. I was one of those people initially, I didn't understand his success, and I was sort of sneering at him, what is this kid with the curly hair, and he drinks chocolate milk. And once I started watching a few of his videos, I get it. He's humble, he's down to earth, he's smart, he's engaging. He's got this relaxing voice to listen to. And the videos have they're not super fancy with a bunch of loud music and crazy quick edits. It's a very consistent format. Him talking in his car on the way to the gym. Then he's at the gym and he goes through his workout, and then he'll take off his shirt and hit a couple poses. Sometimes he does videos where he shows you his eating for the day or something, but I totally understand why he has millions and millions of followers, especially in that demographic, the 16 to 24-year-old males. They can really relate to him. He's one of them.
Yeah. Well, and for me, it comes down to authenticity. People can talk about it all the time, but he actually demonstrates that authenticity, and people really can pick up on that. And that's the reason. And then you do have these people that are haters simply because I'm already a pro. Why don't I make this money and do this? Well, you're not even trying, dude. Turn on your fucking camera and fail for a while. You know what I mean? I mean, people aren't to do what I'm doing right now. I started with Leo last summer. When did we start? May, June?
June 4th.
June 4th was our first. And he said, look, our whole goal in doing this was we wanted to get to 21 video. We wanted to get to 21 episodes because Alex Hormozy, who is probably the best built business person, he's got a great physique. And, but anyways, he said, 90% only get 1 to 3 episodes before they quit, and 9% don't get past 20. So if you actually have produced 21 podcast episodes, you are in the top 1% of all podcasters. So as much as we still suck, we're at the bottom of the 1%, and we're in that 1%. And that relates a lot to me, like, the training, the fitness, the eating, everything we do. There's a small percentage of us that are actually willing to do it.
Another thing with the YouTube, because I'm on YouTube. I've had my own channel for 18 years. I've really only resurrected it since a couple months after MD dissolved. But I was trying to figure out, why does he get all these views? Because he was really starting to blow up right around the time I was starting to get my channel going again. And I was like, I don't get it. And then it really hit me. If people aren't watching your videos, you got to figure out what you need to do better. You need to make better content. You can't just complain about other people getting more views and you think your videos are better than theirs. If people like something and they want to watch it or listen to it, it's like music. I can listen to something on the radio that's a #1 hit, and to me, I don't get it. I don't know, why do people like this? Like Taylor Swift. I don't get the whole Taylor Swift thing. Clearly, a lot of people do get the Taylor Swift thing, where they're paying $20,000 to sit at her concerts. So, Sam is doing something that a lot of people really enjoy. They
Yep.
really connect with him and they feel like they know him. And this whole contest prep thing, he took everybody through that prep. All these people who are living vicariously, they'll probably never compete, but now they kind of know what it's like because he's very transparent and honest, talked every video, how he was feeling, showed what he was doing day to day. He took everyone through that whole process. So, props to this kid. He's doing a lot of things right.
Given your, extensive experience, that's really, I think, is unique. How is your training approached? You talked a little bit about your training at the very beginning, but how has it changed over the years and what you do to now? Is it just, I could tell you my major thing is I'm just always training around something.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably spend a whole podcast talking about that, complaining about our injuries and stuff. But really, I've needed a shoulder replacement for going on 15 years. I'm going for another cortisone shot tomorrow, and I'm going to talk to the doctor about the orthopedic surgeon. There's a procedure they've been doing in Australia called fibroblastic shoulder replacement. Anyway, so yeah, Mike, the training now. So if people wanted to know how I trained, I would go refer back to how I used to train before I got banged up. I did the bro split for years. I trained 4 days a week, which doesn't seem like much these days. A lot of people train 6 days a week, but I did the traditional like chest and triceps, back, shoulders and biceps, legs. I used to train Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Did that for years and years. A lot of basic exercises. Trained very hard. I took everything to failure. I was always trying to get stronger and stronger. Unfortunately, I did do a good amount of ego lifting, and that's why I'm banged up like I am now. But tons of heavy squats, military presses, dumbbell presses for chest and shoulders, barbell rows, T-bar rows, rack deadlifts, stuff like that. That's how I built the muscle that I have, which I don't have as much muscle now as I used to. But what are you going to do? I'm 55. I'm happy now to be able to go to the gym and train and get a pump and still use decent weights and still carry like 215 at 5'7.5". I mean, I'm not a small guy. I'm not as big as I was, but I have adopted push-pull legs probably for the last 4 years now. I like that a lot more than the bro split for me. There's no overlap, so chest, shoulders, triceps one day, back and biceps the next day, and rear delts, legs the third day. And you can throw in rest days anytime you want. You could do 3 days on forever. You could just repeat that. You could throw a rest day in between the cycle. You could throw it in anywhere and it works fine. It's a little less overall volume for each body part. So chest on a push day, you're not going to be doing as much as you would be on a dedicated chest day, but that's okay. You really don't need, I found I didn't need as many different exercises as I originally thought I did. You shouldn't need 5 or 6 different chest exercises to hit chest. If you can't get chest completely properly trained with 3 or 4 exercises, you have to rethink your approach.
Yeah.
The weights are lower, but whatever. I don't know if this is you too, but it's the hardest thing for me. I've gotten over it for the most part. Is I go to a big gym with a lot of strong young guys, bodybuilders, power lifters, and seeing these young kids squat the 5, 6 plates, 7 plates. I'm like, man, I used to do that. And they don't. I don't want to be that guy. Say, I used to do that when I was raised. I don't want to be that guy, but it's tough to see people do that. But you know what? Nothing lasts forever, and I try to be grateful that. Right. I had a great run in bodybuilding. I trained very hard and heavy for many years. I'm just happy to still be able to train, period, and still carry some amount of muscle mass beyond the average schmuck.
Yeah, I definitely feel what you just said. I had double hernia surgery 2 years ago. And then last summer, I finally felt good enough where I thought, I'm 56. I want a barbell squat again for a little while. If I don't now, I'm never going to do it. Well, as I was working my way up, I got to 275. I was deep. It was great. I have video in it. And then it was like a worm in my knee started to squiggle and I just felt it. And I ended up throwing the bar. I went back throwing it because I had my girlfriend behind me throwing it over. And yeah, I have a partial tear in the tendon that attaches my quad to my knee.
Okay, yeah, I fully tore that walking my dog.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done with that. The best is I'm going to get back squats.
Forgot to mention my worst injury ever didn't happen
Yeah.
training. It was walking my dog. Last day of August in 2023, I slipped on wet pavement and the quad came right off,
Oh,
all the way off. That sucked.
yes, it does. And as you got good legs, I've seen your legs.
Yeah, I mean, they're almost back. The left leg is pretty much back to where it was. The right leg's like 80%. You know, the fact that just it gave me gratitude to be able to walk, drive a car, to go upstairs normally, you know, to not be able to walk, to have one leg immobilized for months. You know, I can't imagine. It was a small taste of what disabled people go through, a tiny, tiny taste, and it sucked. So I'm just so grateful to be mobile and just to be able to do normal day-to-day things.
What about diet? Haven't mentioned diet yet. Basically, in the beginning, the time, you know, because we're so close in age, all I did was steak and potato. That was, I mean, what I would do after the gym. I'd go home and eat a steak and a baked potato.
Yeah. Well, when I first started bodybuilding, I really had zero information, zero knowledge of nutrition. I ate whatever was around, you know, spaghetti, this and that. Yeah, I had no idea. I'd say my education at first in 91, when I started work for American Sports Network, the TV production company, my boss was a good friend of a guy you might know because you're an Ohio guy, right?
Yeah.
John Perillo from Cincinnati.
Yeah, I know who that is.
So John was an innovator and a pioneer with nutrition and supplementation, probably best known for his MCT oil cap tribe, but he had a lot of theories about how much, you know, he had people eating far more than what anyone was advising at the time. He predicted, he said, someday we're going to see 300-pound ripped bodybuilders, and people laughed at him. And now look, we've had a few of those. So I was eating a lot of calories because I was natural in those years, in my 20s, through most of my 20s anyway. I got pretty fat because he had me eating. He wasn't like my personal coach or anything, but I read all his manuals and everything, and I was following to the T. I was putting down like 5,000 calories a day, you know, as a natural 220-pound little chubby kid. And I was skinny, but I got chubby eating this way. Put it that way. You know, baked potatoes this big with every meal, or a bowl of rice, probably like 4 or 5 cups of rice. I'd throw raisins in there. Eating tuna out of the couple cans of tuna with every meal. Big chicken breast, big hunks of steak. It was very basic. You know, I didn't know I never even heard the word macros for back in that era, but it was great, a great bulking period. And we had, you remember this, we used to have these weight gain shakes back in the 90s. And for a few years, they were sort of trying to outdo each other with the calorie totals. There was a Mega Mass 5,000. I think that was the max. It was 5,000 calories in one serving of a shake. You know, probably like 400 grams of sugar or something in it. It was horrible. I got so fat. I got to 230 pounds with perfectly round face, love handles, dimples on my ass. And I would diet down for drug tested shows. And I'd be like 175, 180. And like, what happened? Where was all that muscle? But it wasn't muscle. I thought all that fat and water. It was mostly fat. It was muscle. But yeah, these kids today, there's so much information. You know, there are apps that they can just on their phone. Okay, here's what I need to eat today, and they can just follow it and track their macros and their calories. It's gotten a lot more scientific. I'd say training hasn't really changed that much since we were young. The stuff that still worked back then works now. I'd say the diet and supplementation part of it has probably advanced the most in our lifetimes.
Well, as far as the supplements go, at least for me, I would like to have just half of the money back that I spent on supplements that I read, because they were, and maybe you even wrote some of them, but they would write these great articles almost in these ads that sounded scientific and used words I didn't even know what they meant. And other than it was supposed to make me bigger. So, but I spent so much money on over-the-counter garbage. And the first time I ever used a supplement, well, there's 2 of them that I used that worked. One was I didn't buy the stupid fat burners that you could get. Instead, I did the ECA stack, the ephedrine, caffeine, and aspirin. That was my cut thing for a year. or looked like I would take that shit every day. Ephedrine was great. And the other was, I just had it in my mind a minute ago. I'm having a Biden. I never got in, even today, I've never really got big into the creatine. It was the one that the baseball player was taking that they banned because it worked.
Well, androstenedione was the first
Yep.
pro hormone that not Conseco. Mark McGuire was taking, right?
I think it worked.
Yeah. I can vividly remember a product called Cybergenics that was huge in the late 80s, early 90s. They made a lot of money. It was these 30, 60-day or 90-day kits. It came in a big box. I thought I was buying steroids. And my wife actually, my girlfriend at the time, she actually bought me Cybergenics kit. And I thought I was going to get huge. You know, they had these before and after pictures in their ads that were just, it would be guys, you know, off drugs and then on drugs. But we didn't know that. The products itself were garbage. They did nothing. It did come with a pretty good workout video and workout booklet. The workout had a lot of intensity techniques. It was actually a really good workout. But, you know, you talk about you wish you could get money back. The 90-day kit back then was probably about something like $150 to $200. So that would be like $500 or $600 in today's money.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not salty about it. It is what it is. But you talk about worthless stuff. Whew, that was
Yeah.
worthless.
So then, because it's weird because I did get introduced to weed in high school. And I am a recovering alcoholic. I'm sober for 16 years now. And so I was never a successful drinker. I was in Ameriflex. Nobody ever shared ped information or anything with me, which is crazy because I went to school with a guy who got huge afterwards. He was using, and you don't know. I did start studying those things back then. I just never used. And I mean, by the time I started using, I was 39, 40 years old. I was late. I was natty for way longer. Like if would I do this? If I could do it over, would I stay natty that long? Hell no. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, I was 27 when I started.
Yeah.
I had been around the steroid using top pros and top amateurs for years at that point, but I was very adamant about staying natural. I competed in an organization when I started out called ANBC that was a lifetime drug-free organization. I did an ABCC show out in LA, another natural show. I was just I identified as a natural bodybuilder. I judged those who use steroids. I thought they were morally corrupt and bankrupt, and you know, I'm a better person because they're cheating and they're using steroids. You know, I succumbed finally. It took me a while, not as long as it took you, but I didn't want to always wonder what could I have looked like if, because so many guys who stay natural, they're always telling you, you know, I could be Mr. Olympia if I was on steroids. I'd be better than all these guys. I'm like, okay, well, why don't you get on steroids and find out? So I got on steroids and found out, nope, I'm not going to be that great. I wasn't meant to be anything special in bodybuilding. I got a lot bigger and stronger than I was, but I look like, you know, almost another species from these guys standing on the Mr. Olympia stage. That wasn't me.
Yeah. I mean, there's a genetic difference for sure that, I don't know. I think we discount it way too much, but it happens for at least me. My calves, like I got a short calf. You know, I do the stretch. I work. My girlfriend has the best fucking calves in the world, and she trains them not one time.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
you know,
I think a lot of people are in denial because you can't change your genetics, and nobody wants to accept that I can't look the way I want to look. So the knee-jerk reaction for most people is, well, it's because of drugs. These guys look like that because of the drugs.
right?
And now a ton of these kids are on drugs, very young. They're getting on drugs, 15, 16 years old now, and they still don't look like that. And they'll say, well, those guys are using more drugs than me. And then I find out they'll tell you what they're using. I'm like, I know pros who don't take as much as you do, and you could fit your entire body into one of their quads. So it's not the drugs, it's genetics. They don't want to believe that there are genetic variances among people. But I say, well, how many guys have you seen walking around that are 6'10" or taller? Are there a lot of them walking around a lot of guys that tall? And they go, no. I say, how many guys walking around who are like, let's say under 4'10"? Do you see a lot of them? They say, no. I say, well, that's how rare it is to have great genetics for bodybuilding. It's not a common thing. I'll say, I can walk into show me a crowded gym floor, 100, right. 200 people on it, and I'll go, that guy, that girl. I can always pick out, there'll only be a couple of them, if any. There's usually like one or two out of a big population of people that you'll see. I'll go, they have that structure, the muscle bellies, the shape, and they respond better to everything. They respond better to the training, the gear. That's another thing that people either don't understand or they want to be in denial of, is they think everyone who looks like that is on mountains and mountains of gear and GH and this and that. I have known guys who had no reason to lie. In fact, sometimes I would buy my gear from a dealer with them, so I knew exactly what they're buying, because I would go buy it and then with their money and my money and give them theirs. So I knew exactly what they were taking, and I'd see them blow up. So I knew they weren't taking any crazy amounts. But it's, again, people always want to look to anyone who's successful or has something that they don't have and find a reason why they don't have that success or they haven't achieved that. And that's the easiest thing, is it's the drugs. They're on way better drugs, more drugs than me.
Oh, I take way more than one of my friends back in Toledo, and he can just do 400 or 500 milligrams of test a week, 200, 250 twice a week. And he's just very receptive to it. And he's just big. I can take 750 and D-ball and a little Deca and still not look like him. I mean, it's just, and he doesn't take, I know he doesn't take it because, like you said, that I did the same thing. I know where he's getting it. I know the same spot, the same source.
Yeah, I mean, I'll close it out with this one analogy. All dogs are one breed. They're one species, I should say. There's only one species of canine, but they're all different breeds. A Chihuahua and a Rottweiler, that's the same species. You could give a Chihuahua all the drugs in the world, because drugs work for dogs too. You've seen pit bulls that are on steroids. Sure. He's going to be a bigger Chihuahua, but he's never going to be as big as a Rottweiler, no matter what, because he didn't have that genetic blueprint of that breed. And, we're different breeds of people. We're not all the same.
Yeah, that's perfect stuff. Any collaboration or anything you have on Short Horizon that you're going to be doing that we need to keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I would like to let everyone know, if this goes out before the Arnold Classic, I'll be doing a watch party on my channel, Ron Harris Muscle, Friday night and Saturday night. It's going to be myself, Giles Tiger Thomas over in the UK, who does all the Olympia All-Star tours with guys like Ronnie Coleman and Andrew Jacked, and he's done tours with Phil Heath and Brandon Curry. We're gonna be on the whole time, so people can join us, watch the show together on the free live stream, comment, and give our opinions and predictions and things as we go along. And that's about it. I got my channel. I do a little online coaching. People can find me on Instagram at Ron Harris Muscle, and my YouTube channel is the same, Ron Harris Muscle. And yeah, very happy that you gave me the opportunity to come on the show.
I appreciate it. This is as big for me as anything we've done so far, and I'm certainly grateful. Leo, this is going to be up tomorrow, isn't it?
Yes. Hopefully, it should have it tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Yeah. We're pretty quick.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Ron, thank you so much. And we'll send you some clips as well, things that you can use if you want, because this was just fantastic. And I know that people are going to enjoy this, because I certainly have. And that's my main thing. I like to be real and authentic and do the stuff that I like, and hopefully others could share in that. So thanks for being on today.
Yeah, I mean, I try to keep it real.
Yes. Man.
Yeah. Oh, good Lord. All right. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Troy.
Thanks. God bless. Thanks.
Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believed me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces. That mean you really playing with your life.